Today I am going to share with you my entire chemotherapy story, all the things that are told to you and a lot of things that just aren't, that you kind of figure out along the way. I'm going to share all of that now. Today I'm going to share with you my chemotherapy story. I went through 5 long months of chemotherapy for invasive ductal carcinoma. I was diagnosed December 15th, 2023, and today is September 2nd, 2024. So I am almost 8 weeks post chemo, and as you can see, my hair is coming back. I'm ready to talk about it. So I'm going to share with you everything that I went through and just a lot of things that I think aren't told to people that are about to go through chemotherapy. So let's get right into it. Hi, my name is Lauren O'Connell. I'm the beauty editor at Cosmopolitan Middle East magazine. I'm a mom of 2. I'm American living in Dubai. And like I said before, I was diagnosed with invasive ductal carcinoma, and it came as quite a surprise. I'm 41 years old, and the cancer diagnosis just came out of literally nowhere. Now, initially when I found out that I had breast cancer, they thought that the cancer had not spread to my lymph nodes. But what was kind of funny was that I had 2 biopsies on my lymph nodes in the sentinel node, which is that first lymph node which the cancer would hit, and both of the biopsies came back negative. But when I had my PET scan, the area lit up for some cancer activity in the underarm area. During my lumpectomy, the doctor actually took out 4 lymph nodes, and the first one indeed had cancer in it. When I woke up from the surgery, I was in the recovery room. My doctor, she's wonderful. She was leaning over and she said, "Lauren, the surgery took a little bit longer than normal. There was a complication." And I'm laying there and I'm thinking, what? And she said to me, "There was cancer in your lymph node." And right away, I knew that would mean I would need chemotherapy. I still held on to hope that I wouldn't need chemotherapy, but I knew that the chance was pretty high. My oncologist had explained to me that if there was no cancer in the lymph nodes, I would need a lumpectomy and then radiation. If there was cancer, I would need the chemotherapy. My youngest brother had cancer when he was a baby, and I remember him going through chemotherapy and radiation. I was about 9-10 years old at the time, and I just remember him being bald and not having eyelashes or eyebrows, and I couldn't imagine going through that myself. And also I couldn't believe that my parents had 2 out of their 3 children have cancer. It's just crazy to me. But anyways, I was starting to prepare myself for the chemo, and eventually my oncologist told me I would need chemotherapy and I would need 4 rounds of the Red Devil, which is cyclophosphamide and doxorubicin. Doxorubicin is red, and that's why it's called the Red Devil. And I received that over the course of 2 months, and there were 4 rounds of it. Then I had 12 rounds of Taxol, which is known as Taxol, and that one is more gentle than the Red Devil, but it still comes with its own host of side effects that I'll get into in just a minute. So I decided to start mentally preparing myself for the chemo. I was really devastated I would need to go through it, but I always believe in life that life is 20% what happens to you and 80% how you deal with it. So I decided to just go into it with sort of an open heart, to be receptive to the medication, to just imagine it really helping my body, and just to embrace the side effects that came along the way. Life is an adventure, and this was an adventure, not necessarily an adventure I wanted to go on, but it was one that I found myself on, and I decided to just try to do my very best and to have this experience and hopefully never have the experience again. Prior to getting the chemotherapy, you know what, I should show it. Let me just quickly find it. I still have it saved. I had to get what's known as a portacath. And a portacath is this little device that goes into your chest. You can see my scar. There is a portacath scar that comes with it. And Oh shoot, I know I have it here somewhere. Sorry, I'm just going to, here we go. Find it as I'm chatting. I'm sitting in my office. So I had the portacath put into my chest, and when they did that, they had me go under. So initially when I had this put on, I had it put on the left side because I had my surgeries first. A lot of people will have chemotherapy to shrink the tumors before they have surgery, but because they thought that I did not have any cancer in my lymph nodes, the doctors decided to go for the surgery first. So I was recovering from the lumpectomy that I had, and while I was doing that, they were pretty much preparing me for the chemotherapy. So they ended up putting my portacath on the left side. Typically they put it on the right side, but the portacath comes with a scar, so it was cut in the same place when it was put in and taken out. So this is what it looks like, and what happens is when you have the chemotherapy, it's administered through this little sort of, I don't know what this material actually is, this little silicone circle, and it goes directly into your bloodstream. So that was put in. It felt really funny to me. I wasn't a fan of it because it just felt like there was this foreign body sticking out of me. Now, I have met other ladies that have it and they are completely fine with it. They don't mind it at all. I just never grew used to mine. It just still always felt very strange to me. But I had it, so it's so funny, it's 8 weeks afterwards, and I can't remember if it was over or under my scar, but basically the lump was there. I think it was underneath the scar. It must have been underneath the scar, of course. And the lump was there, and so I always just had this lump on my chest. So when I would go to the chemotherapy for the first one, they put the needle, it's a pretty big, thick needle, and they put it directly into your skin and have it penetrate this area. What you want to do, and no one had told me this beforehand, but I'm telling you this, is you need to get a topical lidocaine to numb the area. The first time for my first infusion, I did not have that, and I have been poked and prodded non-stop in this cancer journey. But that was the most painful needle I had received. When that went in there, I remember saying to my husband afterwards, holy cow, that hurt. And I could just feel the sting of it for quite a while afterwards. So make sure you advocate for yourself, get yourself that numbing cream, and what you want to do is put it on at least an hour. I say an hour and a half before your appointment. You put it on there and you put a big bandage over it to let your skin just sink, seep it all in, and it's going to just numb that area. And when the nurse puts the needle into the portacath site, you're going to barely feel anything. If anything, it will be the slightest pinch, less than a mosquito bite. So make sure you get that topical lidocaine. It is going to be your best friend. So the first time I'm laying there, okay, I'm in pain because I didn't have the numbing cream on, and the nurse hooked up the IV bags. And at first you're going to get some other medications. I think they put some fluids in me just to hydrate me and some steroids. And then I saw the red devil, literally this red medication coming down the tube, coming closer and closer to me, and I knew that my chemotherapy journey was officially starting. After I had the red devil, the first dose, I had to pee all the time because I'm having all these fluids pushed into me. So I'd walk around with the IV pole and go into the bathroom, and initially when you urinate, your urine is bright red. And that is just part of it. It's normal. And, just be aware of that. And so the whole infusion process took about 3 hours. I was doing cold capping, which did not work for me. I'm going to do a whole nother video on that. But it took me about 3 hours in the hospital. And after the first round, I actually felt not too bad. I came home, I was tired, I was stressed out because I knew that I had just had these, this chemotherapy put into my system. Everything was still so new. It was a shock. I was recovering from the surgeries. I just felt like I had been through a lot in the past couple months, and I just hadn't truly processed it yet. But I was able to actually exercise the next few days. And while I was exercising, I remember crying my eyes out because I just felt like I was going to get through it. And it even makes me emotional now talking about it, but I knew I could get myself through this. And luckily I had wonderful friends and my husband, my children, family supporting me along the way. But I just wanted to approach this challenge, this experience, as strong as I could. And of course, with being strong for me is also enveloping myself around the right people, having the right people in my space, and just giving myself a lot of grace. So that's what I did. I realized pretty early on that I was getting voraciously hungry during chemotherapy, and my doctor had told me that to expect that, and that I would most likely gain weight. Prior to the chemotherapy starting, I was a size 6, and I felt like I looked great. I'm 5'8", and I was trying to make sure I wouldn't gain the weight. I had hired a nutritionist, and quite honestly, the meal plan she gave me was just very unappetizing to me, and I just knew that I wasn't going to follow it, and I didn't. And I decided that I would just eat whatever I wanted to eat in moderation. Unfortunately, throughout chemotherapy, I ended up gaining about 25 pounds. And a lot of women do. It's not everyone does though, so that doesn't mean you will, but I did. And since chemotherapy has ended, so far I've lost 13 pounds in 8 weeks. So it does come off afterwards. I am eating very healthy, very clean. I always do. And now I'm starting to exercise more. As I was going through the subsequent rounds of the Red Devil, I started to get incredibly tired, and I just couldn't exercise. My body was hungry, I fed it, and I just figured that, one crisis at a time, and I will figure out my weight situation when I'm done with chemotherapy. And that's what I've done. So moving on, let's talk about the side effects. The Red Devil gets progressively tougher. So the first round was doable. And the second round, I felt much more tired. I did feel kind of nauseous. I had lots of anti-nausea pills, and they load you up with everything. And by the third round, I remember coming home and just dry heaving, and I went to bed. I took a shower, and then I just went to bed, and I stayed there for the rest of the day. I was just sleeping on and off. I felt incredibly sick. The fourth round, I still felt very tired, and I just no longer really felt like myself, but it wasn't as bad as the third round. The third was the peak for me. It was really, really tough. During that time, I dealt with extreme constipation, hemorrhoids, which people don't really talk about that much, but it does happen, and I do feel like it happens to many women. It's just an awkward, uncomfortable subject, but be prepared for that. My doctor told me to eat lots of dates. In Dubai, dates are everywhere, so I just started to regularly eat dates in my diet to help try to counteract that, and it helped. It really did help, but I ate a lot of dates. I would probably eat 10 a day, which is a huge amount of dates, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I also felt nauseous. I had headaches. I had very low energy. I was fatigued all the time. I felt my hips and my knees, my ankles, my joints really, really hurt me. I felt like I was in the body of a 90-year-old woman. I would try to go on walks at nighttime, and I remember one time walking with my daughter and just thinking to myself, what has happened to my body? My hips hurt. Like I could physically feel the bones just aching. And when I talked to my doctor about that, he said to me, oh yes, that's a side effect. It seemed like everything was side effects. So he did give me a medication, I can't remember the name, but he gave me a medication to take and it completely eradicated the joint pain. I also, what I'm trying to think of what else I went through during that time. There was quite a bit, but I will say mostly it was just the nausea, the extreme fatigue, and just feeling like I was losing control over my body. I really felt like I just lost control. And one thing I really like to have control over my body. I've never been a big drinker, and actually in the last 2 years, I've pretty much cut alcohol out of my diet. And I didn't like drinking that much when I was younger just because I didn't like losing control over my body. So for me, that was one of the toughest aspects, because I would go willingly get this medication that would then completely mess my body up. During the Red Devil, it's also known as AC, but during that time, the 2 months, after each infusion, I had to give myself nightly injections for the first 5 nights. And the injections were to help up my white blood cell count, because the AC really affects your bone marrow. So the needles were quite long and thick. And I remember I had to really psych myself up for the first one. My husband was there with me. He's like, you can do it, you can do it. And I said to him, maybe you should do it for me. And then I said, you know what? I don't think you should, because I knew I would just end up getting mad at him and blaming him. And I knew I could do it, but it was a little bit of a mind game. The needle was about this big and it just looked so sinister. But you know what? Once I did it and I got used to it, I was fine with it, and it became absolutely nothing. So it was just getting yourself braced and ready to just stick that needle into your stomach, and you want to really pinch your stomach and for me at that point, I was already starting to blow up, so I had a good amount of skin to pull out, and you just stab it in there and get it over with. The injections I felt always made me feel a little bit sick and nauseous, but like I said, they did give me plenty of nausea pills, and you want to make sure that you take all of those medications that are given to you, because they really do help to combat the side effects. During this time, I also saw an Ayurvedic doctor which is Eastern, he's from India, and he just has a completely different approach to healthcare. He literally feels your pulse and can understand your body from your pulses. It's amazing. The first time I saw him was before starting chemotherapy. And when I went in and sat down, my friend goes to him, she recommended him to me. When I went there and sat down, he closed his eyes and he said to me, you have 2 tumors in your right breast. I had not posted anything on social media. I had barely told anybody about my diagnosis, and I did not tell a soul except my husband. He's come to all of my appointments, so of course he knew. No one knew I had 2 tumors in my right breast. Not my friend that had told me about this doctor, nobody. So he's a very special type of doctor, but he said to me, do the chemotherapy. He said, if your oncologist offers you chemotherapy, take it. So when my oncologist said to me, he recommended the chemotherapy, it was just intuitively, I knew that was the right choice for me. And then also hearing it from an Eastern minded doctor, as well as just, talking to other friends and family, I knew it was the right choice for me. So moving on to Taxol. Taxol was a whole other beast. The AC was really tough on my body, and I remember at the very end, after my 4th one, sitting in the doctor's office, and I was just completely drained of all energy. I was miserable. I was a little mad at my oncologist for having me go through this. Of course, that's not rational, but it's just how I felt in the moment. And I was really frustrated as well because the cold capping didn't work for me. All my hair fell out on week 3, which was 3 weeks after my first injection, which is normal. That's usually when you start losing your hair. And I just was sat there and I felt like, oh my gosh, what is left of me? You know, it was as if everything I knew, my beauty just melted away, and I'm sitting there just exhausted. I barely had the energy to get to the doctor's office. And I said to him, if you give me one more of those, if the AC Red Devil chemotherapy, I think I will die. I said to him, I really think I will die. Now, I was exaggerating because I wouldn't have died, but that's just how I felt in that moment. It was tough. Getting through it is tough, but the thing is, you can get through it. And you get through it when you give your body a lot of grace and you just let go of control and just let the medications do their thing. That's the approach I had, and you know what, it worked. It worked well for me. It was a great approach. I read books during that time. I did do some work for the magazine. I did some writing, but I really scaled back. If I was writing 5 articles a week, I now wrote 1 article every 3 weeks. But I still had things to work on, things to do, as well as you know, I'm launching my own beauty brand. My brand was supposed to launch in May of 2024, but because I was going through chemotherapy, I pushed everything back, and I suddenly got this very creative idea of a product I wanted to make and have that be my first product instead. So I started working with manufacturers and just lots of emails, occasionally some Zoom calls, and I just, you know, I kept myself busy, but at the same time, I really relaxed. And that's what you need to do, in my opinion, during those first 4 AC Red Devil chemotherapies. So now I was moving on to Taxol, and Taxol was different. It was once a week, and I wouldn't need to give myself any injections. And I had heard that it was a much more tolerable, easier chemotherapy. So I was so excited to start Taxol. I said, bring it on. I'm done with that AC Red Devil. I'm never doing that again. If I will take anything that's easier. So with the Taxol, it suppresses your ovaries. So it puts you into a forced chemical menopause. And that was really interesting. Ironically, I have had menopausal symptoms before when I was trying to get pregnant in my early 20s, or my mid 20s, I should say. I had always had a very irregular menstrual cycle, and I would have my period twice a year. It was very bizarre. And when I would get it, I would have it for 3 weeks at a time. So I knew I was going to have issues getting pregnant, and surprise, surprise, I did. And at the time, I was actually going through nursing school, so I knew the steps I would have to take in order to have my daughter. And one of those things was I went on a certain medication to help me, I think it was to help prepare my body to release an egg. I can't remember the name of it now. It was nearly 20 years ago. But that medication gave me hot flashes. So I had already experienced hot flashes before, so I knew what was coming when I was about to start the Taxol. Only the hot flashes with the Taxol were way more intense. I would have 25 to 30 hot flashes a day. I constantly carried fans around with me, the bamboo fans that open up, and I would just fan myself like crazy. Because my immunity had gone back up, my bone marrow wasn't being affected anymore, I was now able to start going out and being a little bit more social, which was awesome. During the Red Devil chemotherapy, my doctor said to me, don't go out in public, just stay home and come to the doctor's office, because your immunity is almost like a newborn baby's, and if you pick up anything, you're going to get quite sick, and it's also going to delay your chemotherapy. And I just wanted to get it done as soon as I could. I kept saying to my friends before I started that the sooner I start chemo, the sooner I get it over with. So I did not want to have any delays. So during the first 2 months, I just stayed home, and my friends came to visit me only if they were feeling 100% healthy. My kids could not even hug me after school until they showered and changed their clothes, and any of their friends who wanted to come over had to do the same, which was very inconvenient for my son and his friends, because my son he's like the Pied Piper, and all the kids come to him. We have a lot of kids in our community, so there are lots of kids coming home from school, taking a shower to come over to Jack's house. And of course, they could only come over if they were 100% healthy. And I stayed upstairs the whole time. So with the Taxol, when that started, the menopause symptoms pretty much kicked in right away. And the strongest one for me was the hot flashes. They were unbelievable. I had so many devices. One of my friends bought me a neck cooler that I would literally wear it, and I had a remote control, and I'd just start hitting it and just have cold air blasting at me. I had my bamboo fans, I had portable fans, and I was constantly fanning myself. I would have to take off, I would go between hot and cold, so I'd have to take off my hat because at that time my head was completely bald, and bald heads get really cold. I don't know if men realize how drafty it is up there because they're just used to it, but holy cow. So I was always wearing little beanies like this one, and I still wear this around sometimes because I do just get cold in my house. But then, a hot flash would start and I'd rip it off. I, throw it on the ground, take off whatever jacket or sweatshirt, whatever I was wearing, and I would just be fanning myself like crazy. So that was a big part to get to, have to deal with. Luckily, the constipation went away, so that was wonderful. I didn't feel nauseous anymore. I did feel fatigued, but not overly fatigued. I was able to start going out. So I, a few times, went to the mall with my daughter. I went out to lunch with friends. I went out to a couple dinners. But during that time, I still mostly stayed at home just because I did not want to get sick and end up having to delay my chemotherapy. I was too tired, honestly, to exercise. I would do some walks at nighttime in our community, but we were at this point, I had started chemotherapy in February, and in March, Dubai just starts getting pretty hot and up to 100 degrees Fahrenheit in the middle of the night. So it was hot. So it was hard to walk, having the hot flashes, and then in the hot environment, and it's hot and humid. So I did what I could, but I never overly stressed out my body. During this time too, I never announced on social media that I was going through this because I wanted to wait till after the chemotherapy. I knew that my body was going to take a pretty big beating, and I just didn't want to all of a sudden have tons of messages coming through on my social media accounts that I would feel like either I had to answer, or just seeing them would kind of stress me out, seeing them build up. I didn't want to have leaky energy. I just wanted to really conserve my energy, keep it for me, and focus on myself. And that's what I did, and it worked out wonderfully for me. After I finished Taxol, I waited about a month, and then I actually came out with my story in Cosmopolitan magazine. So I was during Taxol, I could move a lot more. My mind started to feel very clear again. Although there is a thing called chemo brain fog, and if you've ever been pregnant and had baby brain, I would say it's that times 10. You just get incredibly forgetful about everything. I remember saying to one of my girlfriends, how am I gonna launch a business with I can't keep anything straight anymore. I forget everything. My mind's all over the place. I don't feel like me. And she's like, don't worry, it's gonna come back. You'll get back to normal. And I said, all right, you know what, you're right. And I'm still dealing with the chemo brain today, but I will tell you, it has gotten a lot better. With the Taxol, you get peripheral neuropathy. And basically your fingers and your toes, your feet, your hands, they start to get numb and feel like they have pins and needles. I felt like I had pins and needles on my hands and my feet all the time. And I could even feel it going up my legs. Unfortunately, the Taxol just destroys your nerves. And my oncologist told me that Native Americans used to take the same substance from the plant, because Taxol comes from a plant, and they would put it on the end of their spears before they would hunt animals to release the neurotoxin into their systems. And when he told me that, I remember my husband was sitting next to me and he just gasped. He's like, what? And I said, they're putting that in me? And the doctor said yes. And the Taxol came with some pretty heavy duty steroids that just blew me up. I got I had a moon face. My face was just this circle. And I mean, it still is, although I feel like now it's starting to thin out and I'm looking a little bit more like myself. Of course, I have gained some weight, so I do have extra weight on my face, but I was just so incredibly puffy and it made me feel like I was fluffy. I used to say I'm just fluffy now, but it completely just blew me up. My stomach was distended all the time. It was very bloated. I looked like I was a good 6 months pregnant at all times, and my weight just went up every single week. I felt like I was going through a pregnancy, and I just, it was a big test in self-love for me, because it's easy to love yourself when you feel like you look great and you're happy with your looks and you're able to just go about your day. But when all of that is taken from you, can you still look in the mirror and truly love yourself? And I found out that I could, and that was a great feeling. But I did at the same time feel pretty stressed out and distressed about the way I looked. But I knew that there was nothing I could do really about it, and my health was the most important thing. My hair started to grow back a little bit towards the end of Taxol, but the hair was not good hair. And it had been explained to me that when the hair first starts to grow back, it's going to be kind of fuzzy hair and very weak hair. So what I did was I just kept shaving my head. So as that hair was coming through, it was also all white. I would just, at this point, I became a pro. Never thought I'd be shaving my head and know how to shave my head, but I would just start shaving my head through, and because the hair would just, it looked terrible. It was completely uneven, very patchy, and it wasn't a good look for me. During that time, my eyebrows and my lashes really just minimized. At the end of Taxol, the end of my 12th session, I had 4 eyelashes left on my right eye, and I think 3 on my left eye, something like that. And I had very patchy brows. I was able to still fill them in, but they were quite patchy. A month after Taxol ended, all my eyebrows fell out. Everything else fell out. I came out of the shower one day and I looked at myself and I thought, where are my eyebrows? Nobody told me that the eyebrows could fall off. It apparently is quite common a month after Taxol ends, but that's a thing. So my eyebrows fell out, all my lashes fell out, and now they have started to grow back. I have filled in my eyebrows today, but I have the tiniest lashes. You can see them right here, and I put mascara on them for the first time in a long, long time today, and I was so excited to do that. I felt great. So after Taxol ended, my legs have been hurting me, and initially my calf muscles were so tight, and my doctor did tell me that that was normal and to be expected, and he said that it can last for up to 6 months after the Taxol ended. So that was kind of distressing news, but what I can tell you is that week by week I feel better and better. The calf muscle pain dissipated after the first 2 weeks, and I do have some residual leg pain, but today at the nearly 8-week mark, tomorrow will be in 2 days or 3 days will be 8 weeks, but my leg pain has pretty much completely subsided. My upper body feels great. I have a little bit of numbness right here on the tip of my thumb, which is so funny, but this area right here is numb, only this finger. But my legs feel great. Towards the end of the day, they do get a bit sore and I feel stiff. It was pretty intense the first 5, 6 weeks after Taxol ended, but now at the 8-week mark, I am feeling remarkably better. I feel like my normal self again. My girlfriends are all saying to me, oh my gosh, she's back, and I'm feeling wonderful. The side effects that I experienced during Taxol, all the menopause symptoms, those are gone. I don't feel them anymore. I will be taking a medication called tamoxifen, which does actually give you the same side effects my doctor said they'll be pretty strong for the first few months and then they'll sort of gradually go away. So I know have that coming back into my life, but right now I feel wonderful. I feel so good. Yesterday, September 1st, I did my first ever weights workout. Not first ever, but first ever in a long time. Before the cancer diagnosis, I was very active with my fitness. And then when I had my first surgery, I was told no exercising. Then I had a second surgery, which I'll get into in the lumpectomy video. It was just to make sure that they had gotten rid of they had clear margins. They had gotten rid of all of the cancer cells in my breast. And so I wasn't able to do surgery for another 12 weeks after that. And then during my chemotherapy, they told me to really chill out with the exercising, and I was to really focus on just letting my body relax and just be, while it was having all these really heavy duty medications processing through it. So that's what I did, and I told myself September 1st I would start weights, and I did yesterday, and it was tough. I'm so out of shape, but I was really proud of myself for what I was able to do, and I can't wait to just build my strength back up. So that's been my experience with chemotherapy. I did have the portacath removed, as I showed you, this little purple guy right here, and now I just have this scar. And I think the scar will eventually, it'll fade in color, and it's going to be there. It's always going to be there. It's part of my life story, and I'm fine with it. It is what it is. And when I had the portacath removed, I was not put under general anesthesia like I was when it was inserted. Instead, I was actually awake, and it was local anesthesia. So they just put some injections around this area and into my breast. It was quite painful. And the portacath though was removed within 20-25 minutes. And it was very sore for a few days afterwards, but then it's been fine ever since. So I am doing great. And if you're watching this and you have chemotherapy to go through, I'm telling you, you will be able to get through it. I did it, you can do it. And just give yourself a break and don't do anything you don't want to do. When, if it's people asking you to go out or wanting to come over and see you, or, your kids asking you to make them dinner. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. They can have a yogurt. My kids did that a few nights, or we would just order pizza. And, just give yourself that space to just take care of yourself and to relax and get yourself through it. That's what you need to do. Just give yourself grace, time, love, compassion, and know that it's not a forever thing. There is an end date. And actually on my last day of chemotherapy, my 12th dose of Taxol, 16th overall, I had a party. I called it the Bye Bitch Party, and I invited a bunch of my girlfriends to the infusion room. I had balloons, Mardi Gras beads, custom cake. I had fans made. I'm gonna do a whole video of my Bye Bitch Party, but I rang that bell and I celebrated, because now more than ever, I see that life is meant to be celebrated, all the moments, big and small, and I will never ever shortchange myself again. After going through chemotherapy, although it took a huge toll on my body, I am stronger than I've ever been mentally, and I know myself so much more now than I did, back in February, only 6 months ago, and I just have this whole new outlook on life that I absolutely love. I love myself even more now, and I'm so proud of myself for getting through it. And I hope that you feel that way about yourself too. So thank you so much for watching this video. I do have another video up right now. I'm gonna actually batch a bunch of videos. I'm gonna film them today. But you can check it out right here. It's called I Was Diagnosed with Breast Cancer at 41. Thanks for watching.